Good evening. I'm calling to order a public hearing on the end of course acceleration, but I am going to recess that hearing at 6:01 p.m. so we can get to some fun stuff. So that's recess. I call this meeting of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We want to extend a warm welcome to so many here in our boardroom. So welcome, everyone. We are glad that you are here. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics should be limited to 3 minutes, and comments concerning specific students or personnel would be held in closed session. And we'd also ask that you turn off the sound on all your electronic devices. We will now go to our pledges of allegiance. Our first is the American flag from Mitchell Elementary students, and they will be signing the pledge.
Miss Hedstrom, if you could tell them to go slow so that our sign language kids can hear them.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas. Well, that's fine.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Do we want to, I think the Navarro kids thought they were doing
Yeah.
Texas. You want to tell them to come on up and we'll give them a recognition.
So we had two groups here. We had Mitchell Elementary, our RDSPD students were doing the signing piece, and then our Texas flag was from Navarro Elementary. So thank you all for...
Navarro, come up and let us give you a big round of applause. We saw you doing it over there.
You guys stop, turn around right there so Clay can take your picture. There you go. All right. Do y'all want to do the Texas one? Okay, let's do it.
We're going to do it.
We're going to do
Do it
it.
again. Okay. Good measure.
Right? Honor.
The Texas flag. We pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Good job.
We got a double dose of Texas tonight. It's awesome.
Yes, Camden.
We just need to include everybody.
That was awesome.
All right, we will now move to our public comment, and we have one by Ted Foote Jr. And Ted, we invite you to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, I'm Ted Foote, a resident of Bryan for 15 years and within the BISD. And so to you and the other board members, I'm here this evening as a taxpayer and a supporter of the BISD to encourage when it comes time to look at it on the agenda when you go to executive session, for you all to pursue an appeal to the City Council which could result in the approval of BISD's recommended proposal on the location of the new transportation facility. And of course, that would be over and in spite of the rejection of that proposal by the city's Planning and Zoning Commission. You do not need me to remind you that BISD is invested in this property. You know that better than anyone in this room. And that BISD has done all that the city departments have asked, that BISD has met all of the standards for the plan to go forward. The Planning and Zoning Commission, with all due respect, is an appointed group with the task of making recommendations to the City Council on proposals related to planning and zoning, of course. But one of their own members last week suggested that the city staff, in spite of all the positive recommendations, that the city staff is required to follow objective standards and recommendations, but they, the Planning and Zoning Commission, are allowed the privilege of subjective opinions, including, it seems, real estate suggestions to other public entities. Now, with all due respect, again, to their real estate suggestions, this is your or our third site to examine for this use, at least the third site. And we as taxpayers are invested with you, in this case, for public access to public transportation for public school students. Please take this on appeal to elected officials, notably the City Council by name. They are accountable to taxpayers as you are for the different reasons, a different entity. But you have done your due diligence. The City of Bryan staff has done their due diligence. And if you do not appeal to City Council, it seems to me, what message will that send except that an unelected group can shape the public processes of decision-making because they say they can base their decisions on subjectivity. As taxpayers and supporters of public education, we deserve more than that to work from adopted standards. And that more, in this case, is taking the appeal to City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foote. All right. No other public comment, right, Tiffany? No. Okay. Thank you. So we will now move into some wonderful awards and recognition, and I see medallions and cameras ready. So this is an exciting time. The first that we're going to hear about is the Regional Day School Program for the Deaf Program Spotlight.
Good evening, Board. How are you tonight? Tonight I have the privilege to talk to you about Deaf Awareness Week, which starts September 19th. This week happens to be today, which is why we had our deaf and hard of hearing students from Bowen celebrating their use of sign tonight as their mode of communication. You'll also notice that we had several hearing students signing the pledge as well, which shows the inclusivity that we foster here at Bryan ISD. So the purpose of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Awareness Month is to honor that inclusive mindset that students can learn alongside each other even with different modes of communication. And tonight we have our supervisor of the RDSPD, which is the Regional Day School Program for the Deaf, and that's Andrea Alford. We also have Catherine George here. She's our Director of Special Education. And we also have some other staff, but I think they walked out with the students, so if you're here, can you raise your hand? Okay. And one of the things I wanted to highlight with this is that we serve over 123 students in our Regional Day School Program for the Deaf. And when you really think about what that word or that acronym means, RDSPD Regional, means that we are going to serve students not just at Bryan ISD, but across 31 districts in this area. So school districts that are not equipped with the resources send their students to us on a tuition-based program so that we can educate their students for them and we can foster that community where they can be educated alongside students that have the same mode of communication as themselves and their families. It's a beautiful model. I encourage you to visit Bowen, Rayburn, SFA, and Bryan High, which is where our programs are for our full-time students, where they are learning sign language and fostering that community and that socialization together. So I wanted to take the time to tell you about this amazing program that you have been fostering here at Bryan ISD for years, and it's alive and well, and these students are flourishing. Thank you.
Thank you.
forgot one more thing. We had something just recently happen with one of our lead interpreters, and I would love for her to explain what she was just appointed to at the state level. Come on up. She can sign great. I think she's a little nervous to talk.
I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. I am Kathy Sellers, and I have just been appointed by Governor Abbott to serve on the board for the Texas School for the Deaf. I've got 2 deaf kids, and if anybody's seen the article today, one of them was raised in this program. And I'm very proud of that, and I've always advocated for the deaf, and the nomination came from someone, I don't know who. The way it works there at the state level is someone nominates a person they think could serve well on the board. And they called me back in May and said, would you be interested? And I was like, well, yeah. And then it happened that it was July. I had not heard nothing. I'm thinking, oh, I'm just honored to be mentioned. And then they called and told me that I had been appointed by Governor Abbott. And I just didn't know that it would be so much that everybody would be so interested. I had TV and news and articles, and it's been overwhelming, but my focus has always been to keep it with the deaf students and the deaf across Texas. At the state level, I will be able to influence as a parent and as a professional to be able to put my 2 cents in for helping across Texas. So,
Congratulations.
You can read the article in the Eagle. I think it ran today. So if you want to learn more about that appointment, you can look for that article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hear about the expression flying under the radar. You know, we always hear about football and a lot of other things, but we don't hear that much about the deaf program. But it is something to be extremely proud of, that we're a big part of that, and you are such a big part of our program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies. I think I mentioned Mitchell Elementary, but I believe this program is at Bowen. So apologies. I failed to mention them when their family were here in the room. So our next spotlight will be on the Bryan Texas Utilities Smart Business Rebate. I see we got a check coming
love
up.
big checks.
Something.
Gotta love a big check.
It's a little easier to come up here when I get to introduce someone who's bringing a check for us.
You're not asking for money, Paul?
No, so BTU has the Smart Business Rebate Program for commercial entities, and for all commercial companies that Bryan Texas Utilities serves. And through that, as we do our just energy projects, or in this case, it was the 2 chillers that were replaced at Branch and Fannin, which y'all approved about, 14, 15 months ago. That they were replaced over Christmas break was one, and this past June was the other. But I want to introduce Mike Connor, our account rep with BTU, and I think he has a little bit of a surprise for Ms. Carabine as well.
Yeah, on behalf of BTU, I'm pleased to present to the district a check in the amount of $60,000 for the 2 chillers that y'all put in. It's a BTU enjoys its partnership with the district, and we hope to continue that for many years to come. And so Paul plays an integral role in that relationship, and he's a good guy to work with too. So there's the check. I'll give that to you. Then, we have a special presentation. We wanted to commemorate Ginger Carabine's first year as school superintendent. So you may have seen the article that we did at Texas Co-op Power a couple of months ago, and so we had it framed, and we hope you can find a place to hang it in your in your office or somewhere in the building. So
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's okay.
I read that magazine. It's, I
Thank you
read it
so
all
much.
the time. It's a good magazine with lots of interesting things.
He's already walked that way, but,
Yeah, we want you to come back. We
Yeah, I was gonna
think
say,
we're
we
gonna do a
need to
photo
follow
op, if
up.
you don't mind.
Yes.
It's not every day that we get
We
money.
want the check. The check, Paul. The check.
Bring that
honey.
check back.
Bring the check.
Paul, give the
Yeah.
check to Kevin. Paul, give the check to Kevin.
I'll take a couple. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna get one on my iPhone too to be able to text you later. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, we need that too. Let's redo. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me get one more. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank y'all very much.
Keep an eye on him. All right, now even more fun. So next is Fine Arts, our outstanding performer at Texas State Solo and Ensemble Competition.
Ms. Carabine, school board members, my name is Alex Medlock. I'm the head choir director at Bryan High School, and we'd like to thank you for an opportunity to recognize our truly outstanding students. An award they achieved back in May. So RJ Badillo, if you'd come forward at this time, and Christian Eddington. RJ is at Rudder High School under the direction of Jennifer Allison and Michael Patterson, and Christian Eddington is under the direction of myself and Brittany Gibson. And these two gentlemen received a distinction that is comparable to a state championship in track and field, but from a musical performance standard. And so we're just thrilled for them and the hard work and dedication that it took to get this award. And we want to just say thanks for giving us a chance to recognize them this evening. And if we could get parents of these two young men to come forward and be a part of this photo op. Yes.
I'm right here.
Move back from pull back. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more, 3. Get one on the other phone. Other camera, I should say. I need some cargo pants, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Great, thank y'all very much.
we're gonna go right back down.
All right, and next, another Fine Arts, Texas Choral Directors Association All-State Middle School Choir.
Howdy, my name is Brian Shane. I'm the choir director over there at SFA. I just want to tell you a little bit about what these students did. So the 4 students are Sophia Cruz, Cameron Leota, Keegan Owen, and Peyton Stone. And what we did is we submitted their audition tapes. They sang a song and some vocal scales, and I submitted that, and over 800 students were submitted by their directors, and it was a blind audition with just the recording, and a select panel of judges listened to everybody and selected the choir of 200 or 250 students to be a part of that. And so then we got to go to San Antonio this summer. Thank you very much. And the students had, I think, the experience of a lifetime singing in that wonderful choir with an incredible clinician. And just being able to experience that with, a plethora of other amazing musicians.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's all for choir. Next is Fine Arts International Thespian Society.
There's definitely a light shining on fine arts tonight.
Yay for Fine Arts.
Yeah. Howdy, I'm Forrest Gamble. I'm the head director for theater over at Bryan High. And this summer, we had the opportunity to attend the International Thespians Festival held at Indiana University. In order for students to get here, they had to get a superior score at our state festival in Grapevine, Texas. Miss Josie Bettis here received a perfect score of 20 at that festival and went on to ITF to score a 19, which is a high superior rating at the international level. This is a big deal for us. This festival includes over 3,000 students from 46 states and 6 countries. So her achieving superior at this event, we really like to thank y'all for recognizing her for this achievement.
Okay, next is the Bryan High National Merit Semi-Finalist.
Yes. Okay, so last Wednesday, Bryan High was very honored and pleased to announce Gabriel Gomez as our National Merit Semi-Finalist. He is one of about 16,000 kiddos that will be going up for these scholarships. There's about 7,200 scholarships up for grabs, so he has a lot of work to do for the next 2 weeks, getting with Mr. Estes and getting everything turned in. And then we will know sometime around between April and July if he is a finalist and if he gets a scholarship.
All right, let's come up and get cookies.
So if I just like touch you, will I get smarter?
Don't touch the kids, Rosie.
All right, now thanks everybody here on this very, ready? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Chelsea didn't count.
1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, next is our Elementary Teacher of the Month, who will be introduced by Principal Amy Thoman from Johnson Elementary.
Good evening, I'm Amy Thoman, and I proudly serve right alongside all of my teachers at Johnson, and it's an honor to stand with Miss Burchell as she's honored Teacher of the Month. If I could title this month's Teacher of the Month for Johnson, it would be Birthday Cupcakes. You see, in the eyes of elementary age students, being able to bring cupcakes to share with your classmates on your special day is something that is dreamed about days, maybe even weeks prior. However, it's not the heavenly taste that causes these sweet dreams. No, not at all. It's the indescribable, almost heroic feeling a child has knowing that the moment those cupcakes are seen by all of your peers, their smiles and excitement is all because of you. It's your birthday and your parents were able to bring the birthday treats. Just this past week, this was the feeling one of our fourth graders couldn't stop thinking, smiling, and talking about. However, an evening before her birthday, the money this little girl was given and saving for her class's cupcakes had to be used to buy her family dinner. You can only imagine the disappointment and embarrassment the student would try to hide as she walked into the classroom on her birthday. You can't hide from people who truly see you. They are not just looking at you, they're looking for you. Miss Burchell knew. She saw this little girl. She had a feeling, not just because she had any personal knowledge of the situation, but she knew. From day one, she had built a relationship with this student and her family. With that being said, instead of holding back tears walking into her classroom the morning of, this child was greeted with a huge happy birthday homemade sign with 2 containers of cupcakes sitting close by. Miss Burchell knew. This moment is not isolated. Mrs. Burchell sees all of her kids. When you walk into her classroom, it feels like a perfectly decorated birthday party with reading as the theme. Their class affirmation reminds them of their potential. It rewires their brains and reminds them to speak truths over who they are because of how they are loved. This love is poured over into every detail of her classroom, whether it be her reading corner, her diverse selection of books where the students can see themselves in literature, the mirror with affirmations, or the secret stash of snacks that are earned from positive behavior. Miss Burchell considers the whole child and teaches from her heart. With her prior intermediate experience, she knows where the students need to be. In planning, she always asks, is this too tough? This is only to be followed with, I have built in these supports just in case. Students meet her in those challenges because they know they're supported all along the way. It is rare that she creates lessons that don't have a multi-sensory experience. She did a Dutch Bros book tasting where the students got to sample different genres in a themed experience that was inspired by her favorite coffee shop. There was not a detail that was missed. Miss Burchell is Johnson heart all over the place, and we are so proud that she is our peer and honored to name her our Teacher of the Month. And she has her whole family here, so y'all come on up.
Oh, bring them up.
We won't all come down. We're just sending Ruthie with a certificate, and we also have Truist Bank here with a gift card.
Come on, bring the baby, come on. Well, hey.
You're awesome.
Hey.
It's okay.
Did you need a microphone or anything? Come on. Oh, hang on.
Let me move
Hang on.
I don't want to be photobombing it.
Just the little head, just little Ginger's head in the back. Do y'all want to come closer and do the picture? You can come up. Here, y'all stay up here for a second. Stay on. You just stand right in front of Clay. He doesn't mind. Just right in front of him. It's fine.
Olin Mills is kicking in.
Right. Okay, all right. Yay!
Congratulations. And next, our secondary teacher of the month will be introduced by Principal Sarah Rueda from Davila Middle School.
All right, good evening. I cannot think of a kinder, more selfless individual on the Davila Middle School campus than Miss Nancy Housley. Miss Housley finds joy in helping others be successful. She has embraced the challenge of teaching a new course this year, the Inquire Student Leadership. Miss Housley has been a science teacher in Bryan ISD for many years. However, she has taken on the teaching of Inquire Student Leadership course in order to develop leadership skills in the 8th grade Inquire students. Miss Housley quickly got to work implementing ideas for her leadership students in the Davila campus. School announcements are now entirely led by students each morning. And additionally, Ms. Housley's class is working on a Davila care closet containing quick grab-and-go food items and also personal care items. One of Ms. Housley's colleagues had this to say about her. Ms. Housley always steps up to the challenge and is doing phenomenal with new classes. She represents a phenomenal Davila teacher and what it means to be Texan proud. As you can see, Ms. Nancy Housley embodies what it means to be kind to others and represents exactly what Bryan ISD wants as a teaching professional.
Congratulations.
Yay, thank you. Congratulations. Yep, come back over here. So I don't have that weird little...
We're sending Ms. Benford down, and you'll also get a gift card from Truist. We thank you, Truist. It's always wonderful to start meetings with celebrations of success of our students and teachers. So thank you all for joining us for that. We are now going to recess our regular meeting. It is now 6:35. And return to our public hearing on the end of course EOC acceleration.
Good evening, everyone.
It's good to be here with you again this year. So we're here for a public hearing that's required by EHBC Legal that says we must budget for accelerated instruction that's provided to any student who doesn't pass an end-of-course assessment. And then when that acceleration is complete, that we have a public hearing to evaluate and consider those results. And this is the EHBC Legal that I reference. So in Bryan ISD, we have a very robust offering of summer programs. We have pre-K and kindergarten bilingual, migrant. We also have our special education extended school year. We have programs at intermediate, elementary, middle school. And then we also have our credit recovery and advancement courses. And this past year, we had our power camps. And then this past summer, we also added some summer bridge camps for math and science exploration. But with all those programs, we're really here tonight to talk about the end of course test acceleration. So every year we plan for this. We usually start November, December. It always seems like it's too early, but you can't ever start too early to plan. This year we had our end of course acceleration in June, from June 6th through the 23rd, when the students took their end of course acceleration, the end of course test. We promoted this at the campus level. We had posters, we had emails, teachers called students, counselors called students, all encouraging them to come. We also offer credit recovery for free for any of those students. So if they should happen to need credit recovery in one of those end of course areas, they can come receive that end of course acceleration. And as long as they're in attendance, then they will also receive that credit. This year we did see a slight dip of about 25 students in our attendance, but we still had almost 500 students who attended at least one day. In terms of our budget, we spent about $115,000 this year. So this included 29 teachers. We had teachers from Rudder, Bryan High School, and MC Harris who participated in working with these students. Our average class size was about 11 or 12 students per teacher, depending on the area. And then we also had support staff, assistant principals, a nurse, and instructional aides who helped as well. We had supplies and transportation. We provided transportation from the 7 sites throughout the community like we normally do, and that totaled that $115,000. So in terms of our performance and progress, these are how the students did who came to at least 8 days of that EOC acceleration. So in Algebra 1, we had 86 students who participated at least 8 days. 49% of them reached that meets standard compared to the state average of 32%. So we're pleased to outperform the state in that area. In biology, we had 44 students. Their passing rate was 36%, which mirrored the state passing rate as well. In U.S. history, we had 13 students who participated at least 8 days. 69% of them met their standard in U.S. history, and the state average was 28%. And then finally, for our 2 English EOC, we had English 1, we had 101 students who participated those 8 days. 25% of them were able to meet their standard, compared to 16% of the state. And then English 2, we had 12% of those 82 students who were able to reach that accepted rate of passing, compared to the state average
of 8%. So the percentages tell part of the tale. The other part is that these are students who have already not met at least one time. So we are continuing to work throughout the school year and not just during those days of summer school. So throughout the year, we enroll our students in the intervention courses if they've been unsuccessful on STAR. We embed those in the school day. We also are looking at students' MAP performance, performance in the classroom, to see if those students would benefit from any of these interventions throughout the year. And some of those interventions include our Read 180 System 44, Reading Ready, Practical Writing, Creative Writing, the Strategic Learning, U.S. History, extra course, and biology as well. And then we are also working with them throughout the year to recover credit if they need that. So in conclusion, I know this is a public hearing, so I want to make sure, are there any questions?
I had one question on the slide for English 2. It said minus 44?
Yes, yes. So we had minus 44 scale score points on that English 2 assessment.
So what does that mean?
So what that means is they provide you the scale score, right? So that kind of is a comparable assessment of the test complexity, the questions that are asked, and then it's a conversion from the raw score. And then that is supposed to be a way that you can kind of compare students' progress throughout the different tests. But all kinds of things go into that in terms of how many questions they have to get right in order to meet that scale score. And it's a different test. So even though they have those calculations, it's still a different test. Yes.
So one of the things when we look at our retesting of students for EOCs and really for any test where they take a test again, we're looking to see are we making at least incremental improvements in terms of their scale score or their outcomes. This is the first year we've stood before the board and saw a different number there. There's always been a positive average. And yet I think if we look at the state passing right there of 8%, I think it's safe to say there was something amiss with this particular administration. It doesn't excuse the fact that we're not making progress in that area and that we're still working with students. But I do think that there's something unusual about the third administration of that assessment this school year. In general, you can see we do see progress from the administration that's in the spring semester until the retest in the June. If a student needs that, we generally see some progress. That was just not the case with English 2 this year. It was certainly an anomaly and a surprise for us as well.
Yeah, I figured that was the case.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to give us a chance to explain it in case others saw that and went, what the heck happened?
It was the first question I asked too.
Yeah.
What?
So when you get an explanation, you'll give us an explanation?
If we are provided one, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So, go back to that one. That one, yeah. So we invested our staff and our resources in this, and we got some really, really good outcomes, and then we got some not so good outcomes. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the student population that is not meeting where we need to be in passing these EOCs, the end of course exams, right? Like, what is that population looking like, and are we capturing them early enough? Because this is a rescue attempt, and we're still in the river.
So for what we see for a lot of our students is something that Ms. Besaw mentioned earlier, is this particular moment of summer. The hearing is for the summer program aspects of it, how we set aside compensatory education funds for EOC remediation. But it's not the only thing that we spend compensatory funds on for EOC remediation. In fact, we have a number of teachers in those particular positions that were on the last slide, the Read 180, the practical writing, the creative writing, because as she mentioned earlier in this presentation, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Dwayne. One program in the summer for a few days is not going to magically make everything fall into place for a student. It needs to be a concerted effort all the way along the year, looking at their measures of academic progress, the MAP test, to see where are there gaps in learning where we can help remediate and provide additional supports. That funding is separate and apart from this $115,000 that requires a public hearing, and it's a much bigger picture. But to your question, how do we prevent that moment from being needed in the first place or make faster progress on it? A lot of it, we're very grateful that there's room in the student's schedule to have an additional course for that specific purpose. The practical writing and the creative writing, without those, they have one 48-minute class period of English 1 or English 2, and sometimes that's just not sufficient to prepare them to be successful on those assessments. We go from our elementary schools where there's the larger portion of the instructional time is spent in reading and or mathematics, and then as they age through the system as a part of how the credits work, we start to see a narrowing of that for some students, and they need more sometimes. And so we look at our students who have been unsuccessful or struggled on any particular assessment, and we're building those interventions into the school day. I know the board's very familiar with the House Bill 4545 intervention structures. That was the legislature's attempt to do very similarly, especially in light of the pandemic, how we can do this across the board. We're very thankful that's been in place with Bryan ISD for quite some time because there is a great need out there to provide the just-in-time personalized needs and education that each student needs. So in the middle school, there are fewer courses than there are at the high school. There's not a practical writing, there's not a creative writing. So that transpires during the class period and during the school day rather than a separate course. At the high school, we need the time to have an entire separate course dedicated to support them so they make the progress. And when they are successful, they are able to then switch at semester to a new course of their choosing.
Would better funding help this?
Better funding would always help
No,
this.
no, I'm serious. I mean, like, 'cause I understand 4545, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand what the House bill did and how it works. But we did 115,000, and our best rate was almost 70% out of
For
13
summer.
students. Like, that's,
We weren't lacking for funds. It was about the number of students that enrolled and what we were able to do in the time that we had with them. The testing window, we're thankful. We actually will spend more next year, and that's because we have more flexibility with the testing window. This past summer, the date that was selected and why the deadline was so soon is because that's when the state said we had to do the third administration. This coming year, as everything is online across the state, they're offering more flexibility in when that test is administered. We'll be able to move it later in June to allow more instruction to transpire prior to the assessment. So it actually will go up next year.
so this data set that I'm looking at is from 8 days?
Yes. Well, 8 days, students who attended for at least 8 days of the program.
And how long was our program?
June 6th, the 23rd,
About 12 days, and it was half days
180 minutes.
for each course.
So if they need 2 courses, they go to 2 different sessions.
It's
right.
intensive.
It's a mini intensive.
It's a long day in the summertime.
All right, thank you so much.
One thing that's happening across the state as we talk to our colleagues in other districts is getting the kids to summer school is a real problem.
Many of them have
for a number-
part-time jobs in
yeah,
the
they're
summer.
working, they don't feel the importance. They know we're going to offer intervention during the school year.
Yep.
So we're working on ways to compel them to come during the summer, which is hard to do when they're working full-time jobs. So we're going to keep working on that, but it is a phenomenon that's.
And we have seen incremental increases up until this year. We had 500 there this year, which was a good number, but more can be done, certainly.
All right,
So Barbara,
thank you.
Ma'am,
the ones that we missed, like Ginger said, that are working, that didn't apply this summer,
yes, ma'am.
so when school started, those kids were automatically
Yes, ma'am.
enrolled since they
An
missed the
additional
summer.
course.
So they were enrolled in additional courses.
Yes, ma'am. They are in the course right now, and they will retest in December. And if they're successful, January, they'll be able to pick up a new class. But automatic enrollment.
Well, celebrating the students who did pass.
Absolutely.
I
It's a great
think
moment.
Yes.
They've worked hard to get there, and they put in the
Yes.
time.
I mean, I think sometimes we focus on the deficit and not the positive, so I'm
The
excited
teachers
to
did some
see that
tremendous
students
work.
engaged and many were successful.
Thank you.
Any other comments related to the end-of-course acceleration program? If not, we will adjourn the public hearing at 6:51 and return to our regular agenda, and we are starting with our consent agenda.
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Binford and a second by Dr. Davis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The consent agenda passes. Next is on our regular agenda, business services. Number 1, consider approval of purchase over $50,000 for unemployment insurance.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Tonight, we're looking at our unemployment insurance. We run this through the TASB Risk Management Fund, and the reason that we do that is we have an interlocal agreement with them, and we try to use TASB as often as we can. But in this particular instance, well over 90% of districts use this fund to handle their unemployment compensation, and it offers more than just the paying of those claims. They also help with everything that goes along with that. And school districts are a little unique in that they have extended breaks at different times. We have summer temporary substitute employees and things that can complicate these matters, and of course letters of reasonable assurance to employees that are off for the summer and those things. So the fund also provides attorneys and unemployment experts that stay updated on these things and help a great deal through that. The amount for this is based on an estimate of what they call exposure, or basically our payroll for the year. And this has increased over the past couple of years with COVID and those things, and they're working to get it back down. But this actually is a little bit less than last year's was, and they expect it probably to go down over the next 2 to 3 years, probably 5% or something around that range per year. So.
I move approval of the renewal with TASB Risk Fund Management in the amount of $65,028 as presented.
Second.
All right. It has been moved by Ms. Waller and seconded by Ms. Binford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion is approved. Thank you. Next is discuss and consider approval of Bryan ISD dental insurance plan for 2023.
Yes, thank you. So you may remember a couple of, about 3 years ago. First of all, I'd like to say I also have Miss Abby Sterner and Kathy McClure from Blue Cross Blue Shield tonight representing with us back there. And some of you may remember the other gentleman sitting with them is now representing ANCO Insurance, Mr. Ronnie O'Neill, who've helped with this a great deal. But for our dental insurance, about 3 years ago, we decided to split the dental off. Before that, it was part of our group benefits risk pool on our own. And the decision was made to go out and make that a self-sustaining plan and bid it out, which at that time, Lincoln was the low bid and felt like they had the best benefit for us. So we went with them, and they locked the rate in for a couple of years, and it was a good thing. It worked well for us at that time. When it came up for renewal in this past year, we decided that the renewal rates were not we didn't like them as well. So we went out and bid again And you have I believe you have attached the grading criteria for that. And Blue Cross did come out pretty far ahead of everyone else on that. And their rates were, while higher than the current rates are, they were still the lowest, and they were actually lower than Lincoln's proposed renewal. One thing that having it back with Blue Cross will help for coordination somewhat, and also the one drawback that we will lose is Lincoln offered 3 cleanings per year, and the Blue Cross is more of a standard. 2 is pretty standard in the industry, but we will have a 2-year rate lock, and then on the 3rd year we're locked into a maximum of 6%. So besides being the lowest rate, I think anytime I could lock in today's environment with insurance, I can lock in a 2% basically per year increase. I think that it sounds like a good plan. So that's our recommendation tonight, that we bind this coverage for dental with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
I move approval of the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas as the provider for Bryan ISD dental benefits for 2023 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Stasny and seconded by Dr. Davis. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, the motion passes.
I do have one question. When you say 2023, are we on a calendar year on that, or?
Yes, that's a one of those weird things. So the school district is on a fiscal year, correct? September 1 through August 31. But for our insurances, the health insurance, they run for a calendar year. So this would be for 2023. It would be effective January 1. One thing I did fail to mention on this, we currently have, when we made the switch off, the district contributes an amount to this policy. The amount we contributed when we went off 3 years ago was $11.05, and the reason for that amount was that allows for an employee to have basically free dental. It covers the amount of the dental. On this one, that would go up to $12.45, and so part of the recommendation that was in here, I should have stated this before you voted, but that we would increase that to $12.45 to still allow an employee to have free, and that's applied across the board for every level, but the others would still have a charge, but the employee only would be free for the employee.
It was noted on ours.
Okay, I knew it was in here, but I didn't state it. I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is to discuss and consider approval of group benefits risk pool plan design changes in employee medical plan premium recommendations for 2023.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. This one is always a little bit more involved. The district has been self-insured for the health for quite some time, and you know, we kind of pride ourselves on that and being able to provide a good benefit and good value for the employees. You know, but it takes some work to do that, and sometimes we have to look at some options and consider some things to make sure that we're still going through and providing that service at a good value for everybody. So quickly tonight, we'll review the plan performance for the current year, basically, that we're in right now. We'll look at some benefits of the current, continuing that current plan, as opposed to going out for bid or for, you know, doing a standalone plan. And then we'll talk about some proposed plan design and premium changes. Over the last couple of years, of course, COVID has been a major topic, and of course it's hit some of our plan and caused some high costs to the plan. And then we've had several, an unusual amount of high-cost claimants over the last 2 years, and specifically the ones that hit the $325,000 mark, or that goes into the stop loss. The COVID testing and vaccination treatments roughly for the last year through July 22 is about 1.2 million, and luckily we're able to use ESSER funds to reimburse that. That's one of the things that those funds are allowed to be used for. As I mentioned, the high-cost claimants, we had 5 claims at this point that reached the $325,000 stop-loss limit through July, and last year we had about 7. And what I mean by that is once we have a secondary insurance policy, that once we hit the $325,000 on our plan, then we have another insurance carrier that kicks in and will reimburse us those amounts. Normally, what we've had in the past, what we've seen, would be somewhere between 1 and 3 probably of those claims. I think the highest before last year was about 4. So you can see we're running, for the last couple of years, we've had some rather large claims. And in fact, a couple of those could be one person that had hit that in both years. So, you know, that's an unusual situation, but it does happen. Medical inflation, of course, inflation overall is going up. Medical inflation continues to average about 8 to 10% per year. And for the current year, we've before year end, we transferred $2.5 million from fund balance reserves to cover the shortfall in the plan. If we look at that, that equates to about an additional $963 per employee. And so the district every month puts in $460 for each employee. But that would increase that amount to approximately $540 per month for each employee for that year. And I think probably thank you to the board is warranted for that, for stepping up and covering those costs, which I mean by law the general fund has to cover when we're self-insured like that. It's for this and the workers' comp as well.
Mr. Beasall, before
Yes,
you
ma'am.
go on, will you remind the board about the requirement? There's a required amount for us to cover and how we surpass that.
Yeah, I had that in here a little bit, but so we have a $460 contribution that the district makes by TEA when they came out with the requirements for that. They require $225 per month. So we're actually contributing a little over twice what is required by TEA for that. This next slide is just an example. So we start looking at with those kind of numbers and trying to keep the plan viable and make sure that it's you know, can be continued going forward. We looked at, had Blue Cross run this chart, which what is called premium equivalent rates. So if we just look at across the top line, these are the different tiers. So there's a platinum plan, the gold plan is down midway, and the high deductible. But so if we just look across the top line, if they use single, we would call that employee only. There's 113 people on that one. If they were going to go out in the market and price this plan, the same design, the same co-pays and stop loss and or out-of-pocket limits and those kind of things, just the way our plan is designed, they would price that at $838. And what we have it set at on our self-insured plan is the current rate for the employee is $193. The district contributes $460. And so that's a shortfall of $185 for each employee. And then multiply that by the number of employees in 12 months. And so for that particular one going across the top, that would be $251,000 that we would be short. And you can go down through each one of those and you know, do the all across, and it shows, kind of gives us an idea of where we come up short on the plan the way it's designed right now. If we go down to the bottom, you can see the ESSER grant funds. They add that back in there. It's just under 1.2 million at that point, and then the stop loss credit at that point we had 1.9 million coming back. I think we have another 400,000 that's coming, but so that puts us right around the 2.5 million. And that's where we've been in the last couple of years, is at 2.5 million. The reason, just to show this as an example, is just if you were looking at it from strictly insurance perspective, that's how they would look at it. So we want to try to look at some other options to possibly try to work some things out and not have to raise our rates and do those kind of things to keep it viable and accessible for the employees. Benefits of continuing our plan. The surveys that we do every year show that employees are satisfied with the benefits and options available to them. It was between 86 and 90% from the fall of 21 and the spring of 22 employee surveys. When we look at our premiums across other districts and across different entities in the state, the cities and those kind of things, our premiums are generally lower than most of the others that have similar type benefits. And TRS would be an example. And then, of course, we have the Employee Health Center that's offered with that, which is free to the employees that have the Blue Cross insurance. But our goal here is to try to maintain a healthy plan, a healthy, viable plan that the district and do it all at an affordable rate. So that's the magic. So some things that we've talked about doing, and you all have a folder that has some information on these things. We'll implement what they call a Flex Access program, which has some pharmacy opportunities for savings, and just allows some opening of some avenues and some markets to be able to price some of these a little differently. The estimated savings for that particular is about $682,000. And if we get into these and we want to get some more information or dig into it a little deeper, we can, Abby or Kathy, probably be able to explain the ins and outs of that a little bit better. But it should not really change much that the employee is doing. It's just going to change how they're acquired and priced. Implement the Livongo program, which is a diabetes and hypertension management solution. That will have a somewhat of a savings to the plan, but the main things on that would be for long-term benefit if we catch some of those things and help people, get them the equipment and the things they need to be able to monitor those things early on. Then we can perhaps head off some of the larger expenditures down the road, which would be beneficial. We're still ironing out the finalizing the details on this, but adding a position that would be paid for by Blue Cross, and their main goal would be to help guide employees' usage and answer questions and steer people to the right products, to the right places to find, steer it towards the lowest cost option that we can get.
Is that an in-house person or phone person?
Well, we're working on that, but yeah, it would be in-house, could be in-house, or could be 3 days in-house or 2 days online or something to that effect. But basically, they'd be dedicated to us 5 days a week for those purposes.
When you figure that out, how that's going to be, like, will the employee call? Will they go to the campus? Will you let us know?
Yeah,
so we can spread that word.
We will, and Blue Cross, we've had those discussions, and as my understanding is, it's pretty much whatever that we decide works best for us.
Good.
So, I mean, I think if we wanted them 5 days in our office here, or if we wanted them to, roam campuses, I guess that's a bad term. We don't have people roaming campuses, but if we had them based at a campus, had them based at campuses different days to answer questions or be available, be here and be available on the phone or whatever that looks like for us. I think that's what we could use it. So we're still trying to figure out what the best plan for us is to do that. We'd also like to increase the district contribution, $10 per month per employee, so we'd go from $460 to $470. And that's where I talked about we're actually more than double already what TEA requires. And then a combination of some plan design changes and, of course, the increased district contribution and some alternate options for coverages and premiums. We also, as soon as we finish and if we get approval on this, we'll start pushing out. Education is going to be very important on this. There's some changes that we're proposing that are going to need a lot of help. We'll go back to face-to-face enrollers again for our annual open enrollment. We've been away from that for the last couple of years because of COVID. We were online or a call center. We'll still have the call center available, but we're definitely going to go back to face-to-face enrollers and people that can sit down and go over that with the employees to make sure they understand what the changes are and what is being proposed.
And again, I think it's the same as the dental one, but this goes into effect with the beginning of the calendar year, so they're doing open enrollment this fall.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be doing open enrollment. Normally, it's around the end of October and the first part of November in that range. So.
And so, what you're proposing, I see we're increasing our contribution $10 per month per employee for, and I know we ask for this every time. You may have it somewhere, but what are the impacts of this new plan on, if you just look at employee only at the different levels?
Well, let me. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Can I
Sorry.
pause that? No,
Jumping again.
no. It's okay because there's some changes that we're talking about that it could make some differences. So one thing we're looking at is dropping. Right now we have 3 levels: the platinum, gold, and then the high deductible. One thing we're proposing is dropping the platinum plan. There's roughly 200 employees on that. And then in place of that, or as an added option, we're going to add an HMO option, which is called Blue Essentials. We still would have the gold plan, which is the same platform or chassis where you still are able to go. It's a PPO plan, preferred provider, so you can go choose your doctor and do all those things. There are some differences with the deductibles and some of those, but the premiums for these different options, and we'll get to that, could be beneficial to the plan and the employees. We'll have some deductible and co-insurance increases for gold, but no increase for the high deductible, and then no increase in the maximum out-of-pocket for the gold or the high deductible plan. So we have less than 1% of the participants actually hit the out-of-pocket. So it's not a high number that do that. And when you take out then the ones that actually have major medical and hit the $325,000 stop loss, there's not a lot. But just making to keep that out-of-pocket so it doesn't go any higher than that would. They thought that was an added benefit to it.
So what is the benefit, I'm sorry, you probably said it, of getting out of the platinum plan?
Well, it's so that one thing is so we don't have so many options out there. And the other thing is the introduction of an HMO. So let me skip ahead a little bit. So
we get excited.
Well, I'm not, but I'm just trying to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves. So if we look at these options, you've got the old or the current with the district contribution for the platinum PPO plan, and then if you say that one goes away, we add the Blue Essentials with the new district contribution of $470, and then how this is structured is the old gold premiums would become the same premium for the Blue Essential. So if you were an employee on gold, you were paying $112. You could transfer to the Blue Essentials and stay at that $112 level. And if you were on the platinum, I mean, you would go down. You could either go over to the HMO, which would go from 193 to 112, or you could go down to the gold PPO, which is the same chassis or platform as the old platinum, and it'd be 121. So you can see you would have a decrease for savings. Now there would be a little higher deductibles and copays and those kind of things, but they would be pretty close to offset when you take into account the premium.
Is this, these pretty numbers here, are they monthly or are they every 2 weeks?
Yes, ma'am. No, those are monthly numbers. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we always struggled with that. Do we do it every 2 weeks or do we do it every month? Because it's people look at it differently. But when we're looking at the actual premium numbers, we look at it on a monthly basis. And then, of course, you still have the high deductible plan down there. So that was on the slide back before that. I just threw out a couple of options, which you can see it's gonna take some education on this because there's some changes. And if you we're on the old Platinum, you switch to the Gold plan. You have the same basic design, which allows direct selection of your doctors, specialists, and those kind of things. But your premium switch down to the Gold plan, you'd be $193 prior, and down to $121 per month on that. The other option would be to switch to the HMO plan, which requires a referral from your primary care physician. Premiums are reduced from $193 to $112 per month per employee.
So Kevin,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't intentionally try to be hateful. But with that HMO, how many providers are actually in the HMO in this area? Because getting a physician right now is very, very difficult. And if we have an HMO that's already limiting our limited providers, and they buy into the HMO and then they only have 3 doctors to choose from, and 2 of them are retiring and one's not taking new people, then we are at a miss. So what is the number of current providers that are taking the HMO in our area?
Yep.
That would be for y'all.
Or Kathy? Or
If you'll please come up to the microphone.
Come to the mic. All of you come.
So my name's Kathy McClure, and we ran a disruption report from the PPO to the HMO, and there were only 1.6% of the population that would be impacted. So the bulk of your members who are currently seeing a PPO provider would continue to be able to see a PPO provider, an HMO provider. So that there's very little disruption between the two.
Okay.
And it's really different from the HMO. Usually we think HMO from past where it was restricted and narrow. And one of the things that's really different about this offering is, Bryan is so conscious about making sure the benefit plan is rich and it helps and is a benefit to the employees. So that's when we propose this, because the Blue Essential offering that we bring forward, it is meant to extend options to members so the choice is there for them to make and still have access to providers. It's just about how we contract with those providers and the requirements they have to help direct that care that helps drive the savings. It's not taking away choices from the members.
Okay.
And just never forget about the Employee Health Center. There's always an option for the HMO, the PPO, and the high deductible participants.
Would the Employee Health Center be considered the HMO and able to do the referrals? That's a problem, right? So if we're gonna direct our employees to use the resources we provide for them, but that's not gonna count as a referral center, then they're gonna have to come to us for the employee, go to Employee Health, be referred to their HMO provider, get in line and wait for that appointment, and then get the referral to the people they need. That seems cumbersome to me.
And I think one of the things that we can definitely look at is, one, we're happy to talk to the clinic to see if if it's something they'd be interested in, to look at the HMO chassis. I think the other piece would be, historically the goal has not been to necessarily have that PCP relationship at the clinic. But to your point, if that's really where we think we might want to look at and develop, we can definitely have those conversations, and we're open to having those discussions with them.
So I'm a provider, but I'm a PPO provider, not an HMO provider. And so for people to get to me for services, we try to cut through as much of this red tape as possible. And if I'm sick and I need to go somewhere, I'd like to not have to go to 3 different places just to get the referral to someone who may or may not have time to see me. So I'm really.
So in your example, they still have the PPO option that they could go with.
They could, but most of us don't choose those until we're already sick. So we're going to choose the least expensive, and then when we get sick, we're going to. Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you. Thank you.
But I will say, looking at the options, it looks like, there are viable options. They don't have big increases in premiums. So, I'm looking at it through that lens thinking, okay, people can choose what they think might work best for them.
Trying to make sure you still have the options, and again, that as little disruption as possible, but it allows them to choose and be able to have the lower premium if that's where their target is, or that they don't want to have to do the referral, giving everybody an option to, again, make sure everyone has choice.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Kevin, can you remind us, you said there were a limited number of employees choosing platinum. Would you risk saying that the majority of our employees are on the current gold?
Yes, I think there's, it's either 203 or 206. Is it 206?
Okay.
Yeah.
And
206, it's
okay.
actually on platinum.
And I remember
right
when
now,
I
so.
first looked at this, the first few times you presented it to us, I imagined a lot of the platinum plan people, while few, would probably gravitate to the gold plan because of what you're describing. They don't want to have to go to a provider to get a referral to see the specialist if they've already had, a relationship. So I would imagine that would be
Right, and that's going to be, as I spoke before, that's going to be part of the challenge that we have, is to educate and make sure that the employees understand what these options are and what they're actually looking at and choosing. And that's going to be very important in this regard, probably more so than any year I can think of as far as that. Usually we're just talking about premium change or, some sort of, just different minor plan design changes and those kind of things. So it's going to be very important in this regard.
Kevin, one of the things I believe was discussed or mentioned in the Finance Committee meeting was about how much expense is associated with people using emergency rooms and of course we want people to be
Freestanding
able to
emergency
use
rooms? The
what
freestanding emergency room?
they need to use, but is there a way to deal with that so that we're going to be able to still make sure people can go where they need to go, but not unnecessarily incur that expense?
Yeah, I believe so. We talked about that, and do you want to address that, Abby? Is that Kathy? Either.
Yeah, exactly. So we did look into that, and we have suggested that the board increase the co-payment for the freestanding ERs, because those are often it's the highest place to get care, the highest cost of care. So we have suggested increasing the deductible to $500 per occurrence to at least make members pause and say, well, do I need to go there, or can I just go to an urgent care? Because urgent care is a better location for a cold, a sinus infection, a COVID test, things like that. But the freestanding ER is really hurting your plan, quite frankly.
Because I think a number somewhere around $1 million was mentioned.
1.5.
Yeah, so that's fairly significant.
And the majority of that is coming from one particular freestanding ER in the general area.
Yeah, I wonder if we can't invest in some little cards that we give our employees that say, if I'm really sick, here's when I call 911. Here's when I go to this, just to help remind them. Because, I see people sometimes end up in places and I'm like, I wonder why they didn't go to the hospital ER if they needed, or, something.
And that's
cool.
That's another benefit of the on-site, is that person can help support that communication effort and continuously send out that message that, we recommend knowing the closest urgent care to your child care facility, to your school, to your home, so that you're triggered and already know where you're going and you don't have to stop and think.
No, I was just going to agree with you. I think that on-site representative, and to your point, having them visit campuses and be available and be that resource to help members see. We have a level of care flyer that really helps them see. To your point, okay, if I have a cold, if I think I might have had the flu for a couple days, couldn't get in, try and go to the urgent care, try and call MD Live, go to the clinic, really focus on how we direct people and help them navigate through their journey and try and help make sure they get to that right place of treatment. You want them to have the care. It just doesn't necessarily need to be a freestanding ER if we could have them treated somewhere else. More effectively for the plan, but also for the member, right? For what they pay out of pocket.
Right.
Are the freestanding ERs publicizing the opposite of what we're saying? I mean, is it just ease of use that our people are going there?
It's ease of use. There are some instances that we've heard that they would say, we don't need to collect your portion, we'll just bill for it because they know the cost is different. So there's a few different things that we've heard have happened. So it's really trying to help the members understand, I think at the end of the day, how do you do your part and help make sure that Bryan's able to stay so competitive with the benefits they offer? That's one of the things you can help do.
Well, I know as a teacher, every year they would come and give us, we'd get in a big auditorium, they'd give us the spiel about our insurance, and whoever is in charge of this, we need to say 1.5 million went out when it didn't necessarily need to, and I agree with Julie. As a board, we could recommend that those little cards be given once it all gets ironed out, that it's not a must, but these are the places that fit our plan the best. And so when they're panicking because their child's, they think they have whooping cough instead of just the croup.
Right.
And they look at that little card instead of just going to what's ease of use for them.
Yeah, I think people panic when things happen after hours and they don't remember and it feels urgent, as it should. But, helping people understand, oh, I can get care online now. I can see someone that way.
Yes.
And not even have to leave to go to it.
But the more, I know a lot of us are still old school, the more we can put in their hands, in their wallet, in their purse, something that they can just go to as a reference, that just makes life so much easier in a time of crisis.
And I think we have to also not put the barrier just on the district. We also need to work with these people that we're trying to send our employees to. Because we have to look at who we service in Bryan ISD. We have a language barrier, so people might go to the emergency room at this time of night because they know they don't speak any English and someone is there that can translate, because it's going to be difficult to ask them to go to Health Point or somewhere, and you have to wait to find somebody to speak your language, and you have a sick child and you are panicking. So I think when we start sending the message out to try to redirect them on where to go, conversation also needs to be had with these different entities where we're trying to send them, to make sure that when we send our staff there, that our staff know what to do when they get there. Someone is there to service them with what we think is the highest standards that we want them to be served in, and that they don't have those problems when they get there. I think that's a lot of the problem, because if it fits for me, and I have a problem, I don't want a card. I don't care about any of that. I'm taking my child where I want to take them, what the bill says. I don't care about that. We'll deal with it after the fact. But if we start educating them and other people are educating them, then it makes it a lot easier than just hearing it one time a year or getting a card in their purse that they're not going to even think about when the child is sick. That's the last thing I'm thinking about, is looking in my purse at a card that tells me where to take my child.
All right, Felicia, you don't like my idea.
Well,
I like the idea, but it shouldn't be that they have to look at the card. It should be something that's embedded in them to know.
Second nature.
It's second nature. And so we have to just keep instilling that in them so that it's second nature.
And that's part of this onsite, I think, that'll be so beneficial, because to your point, it's not just open enrollment. It's how do we go out to the campuses before Christmas break, before spring break, before they let out for the summer. Hey, don't forget, here are the resources to you. Don't forget to call if you have questions. So it can be part of just their makeup, and they really understand, and they're not just trying to navigate the best way they can, because it is confusing to know where to go.
And we can send them a card before.
Yes.
Card, Julie. I like like the little card. We can get the little cards.
Like it color coordinated.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just gonna say again, I don't think anything is more effective once they realize there's a financial incentive to do so. If you can do it in some way, even if it's small, I think that'll make a big impact. But as long as it makes no difference to them in terms of what it's costing them, then it's very hard to get much of a, it's not gonna sink in a whole lot. So that may be a little cynical, but that is important to most people is well, what's it, if I can get good care somewhere, I'm gonna go where it's not gonna cost me as much. If it's a more important issue, I'm gonna go wherever, and I'm gonna go to the emergency room if I need to, but it shouldn't be, as y'all said, for something minor and as well, the emergency room's nearby, so I'm gonna go there.
Yes, sir.
Add one thing. Along with increasing the deductible or the copay per visit, we also decreased the coinsurance amount, so they will be paying a little bit more of the actual bill. So even if the provider says you don't have to pay the copay, they still will owe a little bit more of the coinsurance part of it if they choose to go to a freestanding.
So yeah, as I said, education is going to be very important in this open enrollment. It's more so than it probably ever has been. One thing I would mention, Mr. McCall has been very adamant about pointing this out. St. Joseph Urgent Care on, I believe it's on Villa Maria, has reopened. That was closed for quite some time. I guess COVID, and I don't remember exactly when they closed it. But that gives us another option to look at as opposed to some of the other ones that we're using. So we can steer people to that as an added benefit as well.
That's good to know. I did not know.
Yeah. Yep, they just opened a couple last week, I think.
Oh, awesome.
Early in September, so.
And like Felicia said, I think, there's probably several that do have pretty regularly someone who understands Spanish, for instance. And so that we really need to make sure they know that we need to know so that we can let our employees know so that they don't feel uncomfortable going someplace where nobody understands.
Right, and we can put that in our communication piece so that they know. So we have those already pre-addressed and or pre-noted that where they can go to do that.
Are there other questions? Are you done presenting?
Do you have more slides?
No, that's it.
Okay.
If you, I can try to come up
No,
with a couple
No,
more if you want.
No. We appreciate you. I move approval of the group benefit risk pool design changes and employee medical plan premium recommendations for 2023 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Ms. Dwayne and seconded by Dr. Davis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion is approved. We will now move into teaching and learning. Consider approval of the 2022-2023 District Improvement Plan.
All right, good evening. I actually have with me Dr. Jill Morris this evening. She has been most gracious in taking on the lead since this summer on the district improvement planning process. It began last year during the spring semester, but Dr. Morris will go over all of that with you this evening. So we have the district improvement plan, and then following this agenda item, we'll move at the board's discretion over to campus improvement plan. So Dr. Morris.
Before we start, I just want you to know I read every word of it 3 times. So.
Good Lord, it was
All
a
like
lot.
90 pages of it, right? Okay, so I'm bringing tonight for your consideration the district improvement plan, and when we start working on this plan, we always take into account the district vision and mission as the foundation when we start, and then we move into making sure that this plan is aligned with the board goals, with the other legally required plans that we have to create so that everything works together to move the district forward. So there are 2 primary groups that take the lead on this plan. The first is the District Continuous Improvement Leadership Team, and that is made mostly of district-level leaders in the different areas, fine arts, CTE, teaching and learning. And so we also have members from HR, school leadership, all work together to craft this plan. And it is reviewed every month at our meetings.
The other team that works with the district improvement plan is the District Education Improvement Committee, and that is where we have our representatives from campuses and parents that weigh in on this committee. They review it, we give them updates throughout the year of the progress, and they provide us feedback as to are we moving in the right direction. So the main 5 goals have not changed significantly in terms of the general content. So we still have the academic, culture, climate, safety, workforce, community engagement, and post-secondary success. Those are the same big buckets that we used last year. We have, however, made a few adjustments when you get down to the performance objectives and strategies. And so when we're looking at the academic, we are continuing to focus on that core education pre-K through 12th grade with a focus on supporting all learners. We have information in the plan about our gifted and talented students, our 504 students, dyslexic students, special education students, bilingual and migrant programs. We also have information in there related to CTE and fine arts because we think it's important to educate all of our students to help them reach their full potential. The second part of this is the culture and climate, and a lot of that is the same, but with the addition of safe and civil schools, that is going to be a huge part of how we address culture, climate, and safety issues. We've also added in there some information about the Student Ambassador Program that has been recently started, so that will be part of our district improvement plan. The third, whoops, clicked the wrong button, sorry about that. The third part of this is our maintaining our high-quality workforce. Again, safe and civil schools will play a part of that. We'll look at teacher retention, teacher mentoring, and providing quality PD for our staff members. And then the fourth part is our community relationships. And so we know that that's been a big focus, and we've worked very hard to develop those partnerships and relationships, and we want to continue to do that. And then the fifth is the focus on that post-secondary success so that when our students graduate, they are ready for whatever options that they want to move forward with, whether it's career tech, college career military readiness. So we have all of those in there in this goal. And so that is a very brief overview of the 91-page document that is the district improvement plan. So do you have any questions for me?
Would you go back to the previous?
Yes, sir.
I guess one of the things that I always interested in is the big and new and improved, or big and new and different. For instance, let's just pick one, community engagement. Is there anything, we all know that's important, is there anything really big or new there, or that we're just trying to improve that will get the community more engaged in our schools?
Do you want to?
Sure.
So there are actually a couple of new partnerships on that front. In fact, one of them is actually transpiring here this evening with BV CASA. Dr. Merrill and school leadership here have been working with Donna Willett in counseling services. And BV CASA, we've strengthened and expanded that partnership where they're actually here on site working with families and students this evening in one of our professional development rooms.
How many did you have today? Because I know they were here when I got here.
Dr.
How many
Merrill?
did y'all have?
There were 15 registered. It was 15 registered. I'm not sure when we came over how many actually showed up in attendance.
Okay.
We're part of the challenge.
Go to the microphone.
Sorry, here, sir.
Part of the challenge is just making sure there's follow through. So they're invited. We follow up with them. We schedule them out maybe a week ago, then we follow up the day of, and then getting the parents and the students to attend. And so Tiger Burton's sitting in the back, and so we've had a wonderful relationship this last year with BV CASA, and just working with our parents for various reasons. They've been able to program it out, and so we've done one session at actual BV CASA, then we've done a second one here on site, and we'll figure out which one is maybe the easiest or the most attended, or which one makes the most sense. And we've talked about it. So 15, we'll see how many show up tonight.
Okay, thank you.
expanding on that for other partnerships, TChat. That's the partnership with Texas A&M University where we provide at a distance through video conferencing, counseling services, and therapy services for students in need who are not necessarily in a special education setting, but it's through parent permission. It's been an excellent partnership, and they've recently been able to expand so we can serve more students via that pathway. And it gets our students access to mental health supports and resources that would otherwise not be available to them. Mrs. Willett's also working on an expansion of E8 partnerships with businesses and looking at a different angle to re-engage. And, during COVID, we all kind of got really quiet about some of our community partnerships. And so trying to revamp that and reinvest in that time with our other partners and expand that. So some that are returning, some that are expanded, and then always seeking new. We're very, very proud and thankful for our faith-based partnerships that continue to grow, but always want to continue to strengthen those relationships.
Thank you.
And if I may add, with the Bryan ISD build, partnering with Habitat for Humanity, we're making a very concerted effort to take those student ambassadors in particular out to the community to forge those relationships with our students. So that's been very powerful. I'm taking them to the Rotary and to different events, exposing our children to these different organizations and creating that awareness. So we're leveraging that for community engagement for sure.
One of the strategic partners of the ambassadors is the Habitat Build, and the second one is our faith-based leaders. And so we've already started that, and we'll continue to invite those guys out and ladies out to talk to our students, just obviously strengthening those relationships. And we're going to meet at collaboratives, and so y'all last, the work session that we had, you saw all the kids, and so we'll continue to do that.
So to move from community, I'm going to go over to that safety, security, cybersecurity, SEL kind of zone. Who wants that one?
We're trying to decide who's that. Go ahead. Let's ask the question.
Who wants that one? Okay. So we bought and introduced Safe and Civil Schools, and I've seen a lot of things coming from that. How are you seeing impacts from that? And we paid a lot of money for
Yes,
this
ma'am.
program.
So we're in the middle of that process, and in some respects, at the beginning of that process. All teachers were trained on the classroom management side of it this summer with day one of CHAMPS and day one of discipline in the secondary classroom, depending on what's appropriate to them. There's a second day, though, and that's after you've had some school, now what does it look like? What is the refinement opportunity that we have for what that looks like in the classroom? Those days are coming up on the calendar on October 10th and November 1st, different for each group. The other aspect of the partnership was the Foundations program, which is the school-wide process and system. So classroom is midway through, and we're going to get ready to do a refinement. And then the other part of the process is Foundations. We just finished week before last, day 3 of 8 days of training over the course of this year. So we're still pretty early on in that process. We've got things in motion, more to do. There's actually, the next day is tomorrow and Wednesday. So we're making some progress and some momentum, but it is still early on in that process.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions we can answer for you? It's not a document that's set in stone. It's one, as Dr. Morris mentioned, that we revisit monthly and make adjustments as needed to be responsive to the needs and new developments.
I have noticed at some of the events, we are seeing record numbers of parents showing up for
Yes,
things.
ma'am.
And I think in the beginning, it kind of caught some of the schools off guard. But at all the events I have been to, it has been crowded and warm. Where's Paul?
We texted him earlier this evening for another area. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because it has been warm. But the events are well attended, and that is always a good thing.
It is. We're thankful for our parent partnerships and that they're willing to come back in and partner with us.
Any other questions? Someone ready to make a motion?
I move approval of the district improvement plan as submitted and authorize the district administration to make necessary adjustments to the plan throughout the year in order to meet the needs of the students and respond to the new developments.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Ms. Benford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. All right, we're now moving into school leadership.
Which was more than 91 pages.
Well, we have 22. Consider approval of the 2022-2023 campus improvement plans, and there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. So our campus principals begin the campus planning process in the spring of the prior year. And they begin that process by developing their teams at the campus level, which include the administrators, the teachers. They have parents on their teams, community members, and that's where the process starts. They use a multitude of data during this process. They use demographic data, they use assessment data, they use perception data to include surveys, attendance data, discipline, just a multitude of data. During this process, then they begin to create their goals, their objectives, and their strategies that are going to help them to meet those goals. This year, each campus principal was also charged with developing 3 big goals. We looked at needs from last year, so they created 3 big goals to include, of course, student achievement, and then attendance and discipline. That became part of their campus plan as well. And so safe and civil schools is definitely a part of that. And then, their campus plans are working documents. So during the year, they're going back and revisiting those plans with staff, and so that to make sure that they're meeting each of the goals in those plans. So it's a really collaborative process to include all members, on their teams and sharing those with their campuses as well as parents and community.
So I liked the, of course, the safety, security, and the school culture stuff, but I also noted a thread running through a lot of them of the literacy awareness and literature. Do not smirk at me, Brian.
It's funny.
And why is that funny?
You read them.
You read them.
I read every single one of them.
It's impressive.
So did David.
Make sure I will pass it on. We appreciate it.
We did, but.
I will appreciate that.
But
They
the literary awareness and the focus on literature, especially with the changes in the STAR that is coming up to where we're going to be doing best choice, multiple choice.
Absolutely.
That is such an important thing, and for that to be reflected in documents, I think is kudos to you guys for teaching that, but also that your staff at that level are recognizing it and putting it in the plans. And it was somewhere in just about every one of those godforsaken plans.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I had a question about, recently, fairly recently, we approved a package, the 5 Lab package, so that our folks can make more data-informed kind of decisions. So I'm just curious how you saw our principals and others use that in development of these plans, or if we're not quite there yet.
Well, so the 3 big goals, those are the areas that we will be looking at when we use 5 Labs. So
For
the
data.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Perfect. Awesome. And so they feel like they're getting a handle on how to drill into that data at their
And it's
campus.
real time, so they
Yep.
can look at it weekly when they have their meetings and update the plan as needed and make adjustments.
You watch Barbara crawl over the table.
Well, and I'm thankful to
I'm on it.
our tech team and others who worked on those data feeds. I know that was a pretty big project to tackle in a short period, but I'm really glad to see us moving into that space where we're able to make those real-time decisions based on what's happening.
So when you were reading the Davila one in particular, when you were reading that one on like page 2 or 3, it marries the map data and the 5 data together, and it's well done.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
They're using it.
Thank you.
They
Thank
are.
you for recognizing that. They worked hard.
Yes, we use it.
We do,
We do.
daily.
That's what we want.
That's what we wanted. Thank y'all so much. Do we need a motion on that?
Yes.
I move approval of the 2022-2023 campus improvement plans as presented and authorize the administration to make adjustments as necessary to meet the needs of students as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It was moved by Ms. Binford and seconded by Ms. Waller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes.
I'll tell you how old I am. I remember when the state started requiring this, and Jerry Ellis was the principal at Bryan High School, and he put together a team of teachers to write our first campus improvement plan.
Oh, wow.
And I was just a baby teacher, of course, at the time. But I remember, I couldn't believe how much time, and we had to write a new a mission statement and all the things that go along with this, because it was the first time we'd ever done it. And it was literally hours and hours and hours putting it together and hashing it down and being proud of what, you know, what we were doing. And golly, it makes me feel old. But I'm proud.
Okay. The board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Chapter 551071, 129, 074, 072. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 7:51. the board reconvened in open session at 8:42 PM.
I move that the Board of Trustees take action so the city of Bryan can avoid any doubt that we are continuing to pursue action by the city council to approve rezoning.
Second.
And I would like to comment on the motion before we vote. I'm very disappointed that we've reached this point. I know firsthand that our staff worked very hard to find this tract of land and had absolutely no reason to think that we would have any problems using it for what we want to use it for. And the fact that it was already, that Glenn had already been given permission to use it for educational purposes and obviously take it off the tax rolls. So we were confident. We have good relationship with the city, and this was one of those things that we just absolutely could not see it coming. And I'm simply saying that to explain why we're having to do what this motion is about. And I certainly hope that it will end well after further thought and discussion by the city council.
Thank you. Mr. Stasny, any other comment? Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Davis and second by Dr. Benford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
You made
Motion
Felicia a
passes.
doctor. You made Felicia a doctor.
Oh, well, Dr. Benford,
Aye.
Ms. Benford, thank you.
So I make the motion that we direct the administration to consider and take action on locating a temporary plans to present to the board for our maintenance and transportation facility.
Second.
Right, it has been moved by Ms. Benford and second by Dr. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No further discussion. We are now adjourned.